Welcome to Daily 5 for Thursday, July 10th, 2025. I saw, or read, I should say, an article over on the Aftermath video game site, which was talking about the fact that at this point, people should just abandon Microsoft and their gaming ambitions. And it coincided roughly with a back and forth I saw in one of the many Discords I'm part of, this one for Digital Foundry, which is very video game centric. And it was some back and forth between individuals. I won't name any names, but these people were going back and forth on the concept of how necessary big publishers are, AAA games, expensive games versus independent games or indie games. And, there was a couple of examples used. Well, okay, could you imagine an indie studio doing X, Y, Z? One of the examples used was Death Stranding 2. And in fact, Death Stranding later on, just to say, even the original one, could you imagine an independent studio doing that? And it really made me think about it because obviously I'm a huge fan of the first game. I love the second one so far, unless something radically changes, which I don't think it will. But it really made me think, okay, how important are the graphics of this game to the experience? And the more I thought about it, just from a serious perspective, because I thought about another game I play a lot, that I've been playing a lot, I don't even know how many hours I have into it at this point, which is a game called Dave the Diver, which is not necessarily an indie game in that it wasn't a two-person job or anything. There's been a lot of kind of misconception around that, but I was thinking more of the art style, which is an older kind of pixelated art style that generally, from a visual standpoint, would be easier for a smaller team to achieve than, say, what Death Stranding 1 or even 2 have done. And I thought, well, if Death Stranding 2 had Dave the Diver style graphics, would I really care? Would that really harm the experience? And I have to say, I don't think it would. Now, I've said before, graphics are less impactful on me for a couple reasons. One, I grew up where there were graphics that were indistinguishable from a blob on a paper. Also, my eyes aren't all that great. I've never really picked up the appreciation for things like ray tracing, that style of... So this is all subjective is where I'm going with it. So obviously you may think differently. But I have never really been all that impressed with cutting-edge graphics to begin with. What has always been the more important part, and I think many people, if you really ask them, would say that this is the most important part, is the gameplay. How engaged are you with the game? At whatever level, whether it's the story, whether it's the gameplay mechanics, whatever the reason, if there's something that engages you with the video game, that you enjoy spending time with it for, again, whatever, I mean, if everything's working together, that's ideal, but for some people, it doesn't really matter if the story makes sense or not, Death Stranding 1, Death Stranding 2, to a large degree. If the gameplay itself is great, that overcomes it. On the other side, there are people who think the narrative is the most important part, and that will overcome gameplay problems. Many older games that people replay, honestly, they are putting up with problems of the era because the experience, the story, the actual setting, whatever it was never matched again, even in sequels or revisits or whatever. There's numerous examples of that as well. I still go back and regularly, I just played through Gradius 3 again, which is notorious for its slowdown on the Super Nintendo. The thing drags almost to a halt, but I just love the game so much I don't care. And as many people point out, it does kind of help as you get older and your reflexes aren't as good as they used to be. So I don't really care about it, but it is very noticeable. I just don't care because I like that game. I like the music, I like the setting, I like the look of it. All that stuff just works together. But again, this is something to consider is, do the graphics really matter? And I don't think that they do. And so there is an argument to be made, and I think people have been making it now for quite a few years, places, people like Stephanie Sterling, places like The Aftermath, many others, that we got consumed with the idea of everything being visually perfect. And that came at the expense of many other more important things. The actual functioning of games. Having a game that launches in a complete state, say. People's time and lives and ability to disconnect with work because they don't need to make a deadline. All of these things are far more important than whether a headlight reflects accurately off of the window of a building. And so, to come back to the original thing that generated the 5, would I care if Death Stranding 2 looked like Dave the Diver? Would I still play it and would I still enjoy it just as much? Yeah, I honestly think I would. And that should tell you something, at least about me. Later.